welcome to the UK Flying Podcast. On this week's show, we've got Ben Wain, who's a business consultant from a corporate career, flooring, furniture. He's done it all. Sit back, enjoy the show. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button on all channels. Welcome to Darlington. You haven't come far. Who are you? What do you do from the minute you left school?
Oh God, what a great question. The minute I left school. So first of all, I'm Ben Wain. I am a business consultant. I'm a property investor. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I can't forget that bit. Because my wife watches this. What have I done since I left school? Oh gosh, well,
Question.
Yeah, big question, long question. So I'm 41 years old now, so a bit of a career behind me. Left school, went straight into working behind bars. Actually, I really enjoyed that. I started out as a glass collector and just meeting people, having fun. I was quite short at the time, so I'm 6'1" now, maybe 6'1.5", but 6'1". And I was quite small at the age of 16. So between the age of 16 and the age of 18, I had a big growth spurt, nearly a foot. So you imagine 16 years old running around these bars and pubs. I was quite small in comparison to most of the adults. But yeah, I shot up. I went behind the bar, really enjoyed it, had loads of fun. And then I found my way into a sales job, selling furniture for a company called Walmsley's.
Right.
If you remember them, they were a high street furniture company.
Rings a bell, but
Yeah, they were good company. I started there as a warehouse guy. Just it's your first job out of school. I remember the money was terrible. But I thought I'll give it a go. So I started out as a warehouse guy, and then they gave me the opportunity on a Saturday, if I wanted to, just to come in and talk to customers and see if I could do sales. Sales was the progressive next step. So yeah, give me a go at that. And just a couple of Saturdays, I was coming in and outperforming the sales team on the Saturdays. And I was a cheeky 17, 18-year-old man who thought he knew everything about sales and thought he was conquering the world. I was quite confident. So yeah, I moved into the sales role from there, and then a couple of companies. So moved into a company called Durham Pine.
yeah.
They turned into DP Furniture Express, and very quickly again, selling came natural. I turned into one of the company's top 10 salespeople, won lots of awards. They then started to close the business down and a lot of them were franchise stores. They started to close these company stores down and try and sell off the franchises. And every time they'd close one down, they'd move me to the next one, which gradually got further and further and further away from home.
Right.
So whereas I started 10 miles away in the northwest of England, I was in a Liverpool store. So I'm from Runcorn originally. I then moved to Oldham. I then moved to Preston and Blackburn. And by the time I was getting 50 or 60 or 70 miles away from home, I thought, I've had enough of this. So I went for 2 job interviews. I went for an interview at DFS and I went for an interview at SCS. And I got both. And at the time, my eldest son now is 19. He was just being born or just about to be born. And at SCS, they offered you a 5-day working week. And at DFS, it was a 6-day, 5-day, 6-day, 5-day. So that was the only reason I went to SCS. And that was my career with those guys for 18 years through sales floor, sales management, branch manager, moved into regional manager role, relocated twice. So I relocated from Runcorn into Yorkshire, fully paid for by the business, which was amazing. And then I relocated from Yorkshire as a regional manager to get closer to the head office, which was in Sunderland. So I moved up to the northeast, which is where I am now, Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
At that point, it suited my wife. My wife was, my wife's family was from Middlesbrough. So it was a win-win for her. She was getting closer and closer to home from Runcorn to Yorkshire to Middlesbrough. So yeah, that was great. And then I started to work in the head office I moved into the head office as a head of flooring operations. And I finished my career there in 2024, August 2024. And I kind of fell into being a business consultant. A couple of people reached out to me on LinkedIn after I finished and asked me to have a look at the business, help them with a couple of projects. And at the time, I was going to take 3, 4, 5 months off, maybe not work until after Christmas. Focus on a few personal things, getting a bit better, bit fitter, in better shape, take a bit of time out. But I fell straight into the consultancy role and loved it. Absolutely loved it.
What was that turning point? What was the falling bit? How did you go from, I'm going to call it corporate, but to I'm out?
I guess I had a number of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I think I wanted to look for that next big role. So I was quite senior in SES. I was in the senior leadership team. I reported straight into 2 directors. And the next step for me was to move into the board. And that's kind of where I saw my trajectory, working for a big company on the board, helping make the strategic decisions to run businesses. So my eye was really always on that next big role and landing that next big role. But I thought if I can use consultancy as a bit of a platform to keep me engaged, keep my brain matter ticking, get stuck into some problems. I love solving problems. That's what I enjoy. But then I quickly realized when I went into the consulting world that actually these businesses that I was consulting for, you did the same thing as a consultant in terms of consulting the board, helping them with strategy, helping them write systems and processes. I was doing everything that I wanted to do in my career, but I was able to work with multiple businesses at the same time, which then kept it quite fun. So it was a win-win for me. And my end goal, if I'm totally honest, my end goal would be to start acquiring and buying some smaller businesses. And the reason why I thought I would stay with consultancy work was because as a consultant, you can work with a vast array of businesses in lots of different sectors. And it enabled me to gather knowledge from these businesses about different sectors that I didn't necessarily know or have worked in before. So my background is retail, my background is flooring, furniture, etc. So if I could expand my network into different businesses that weren't necessarily flooring retailers or furniture retailers, I'd gain that knowledge, and then I could use that for when I'm looking at purchasing other businesses in the future. So it might be B2B manufacturing, or there's lots of different opportunities out there. So that's kind of selfishly why I stayed with the consultancy role, and I do absolutely love it. I've got a very small number of clients, very selective on clients. To this day, I've never actively searched for a new client, and which I'm quite proud of. Clients have approached me and asked for help and support and guidance. And I can keep those numbers small because I'm just me. I don't have a big operation like this, and this is a fantastic operation by the looks of things. But at this moment in time, I can keep my business small and then just support that small number of clients.
What problem do you see coming up, like with most of the clients you've either have now, or had? What keeps coming up time and time again where you think, oh, hang on, here we go again. What? And that can be out of flooring in all businesses. What?
Systems and process. I think a lot of the businesses that I consult for have the same problem, and they've done a number of things the same way for a long period of time. And often they have great people within the organizations, but people that are used to certain ways of working, used to certain systems. And, as I'm sure you're aware, systems and processes are changing now at a speed that with AI in particular, just at a speed that today's technology is out of date in a couple of weeks' time. So the biggest challenge is helping these businesses identify the opportunity, but then probably running at the pace that's required just to get to minimum standard, or a standard that's going to start helping them improve their organization before the next thing is out of date again. So, and one client I have in mind at the moment, we are changing their whole systems. They use a very outdated system, but it works for them. And they have let's call it 100 staff. So they have 100 staff, but these 100 staff have used this system for 20 years. But then with these medium-sized organizations, SMEs, they don't have the people or the training departments that, your big furniture retailers have, or big organizations. So to help them implement that training and structure and robustness of going through a full system change can be quite difficult. But I think, to answer your question, I think the most common thing that these businesses are coming up against is the speed that technology and the world is changing, and that leads into then what the customer's expectations are.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely getting more difficult from I don't know, I can't compare it from when I had retail. I wouldn't say it was easy, but I think client expectation is more, or I don't know if it's more because I'm focusing in on other people's, or
It absolutely is. No, you're right. Everybody wants the Amazon service now, don't they? The Amazon is, you order it tonight. You order it today, it could be there tonight at some point in some products, but they want it next day, or they want it sooner. They want the slick email. They want they want to be able to search for something really simply on a website. So, and they want it all to talk to each other. So it'd be that omni-channel piece.
Yeah.
They want to walk into a showroom and see the things that they've seen on the website. So it all marries, and you win their trust. It's the customer demand now, and the customer expectation is so high. You can very quickly get left behind, and it seems to be these businesses that are popping up almost overnight that are getting it right because they've not got legacy ways of working, or they've not got ingrained behavioral challenges. They pop up overnight with a new website, with a new way of working, with a showroom layout that matches their website, and it's very quickly a win-win for them.
I think I went shopping we went looking for a sofa the other day. I can't remember if it was DFS or ICS. I think it might have been DFS, but showroom was amazing. Smelled great, very clean, amazing choice. Found the sofa we wanted, and salesperson was great, well trained. But then it was delivery end of April.
Yes.
And was I ready to buy then? Probably. And that actually put us off.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly as you said, that the whole thing end to end was great. And it's deliveries end of April. Oh, I kind of want it now.
Yeah.
And that's I know there's definitely some operational reasons why you can only have it in that colour and that sofa and that, but we did the same with a log burner. And I mean, it might be just because I'm completely impatient. Got 3 people to price it. One guy said, look, we were meant to be doing our showroom and get you in next Friday. It'll be done for you a week today.
Mm-hmm.
Just get on with it.
Yeah. Sometimes time is time scale. You don't mind paying a little bit extra if you can have it quicker. It's not all about price. And I think a lot of retailers these days, it's a race to the bottom almost. And there's going to become a point where it's just, you're unable to trade in some cases, particularly the flooring industry.
Yeah.
Knock 50p off, and then somebody else knocks a 50p off, and at the end of the day, you're just starting to work for the supplier. And does it get so difficult? And that's why you see bricks and mortar retail is becoming more challenging, and people moving more towards, vans, etc., and out on the road and samples. But with furniture, it's so hard to stock. It's such a big, bulky purchase with so many different combinations. But there are businesses that are doing it and doing it quite effectively. I think the sweet spot is to have, a small number of colours available, not these pattern swatches of 20 and 30 choices, small number, and then you can stock the product. However, then the flip side of that is customers want choice. So you don't have the colour. So it's a double-edged sword, really. But yeah, I get it. Absolutely, it's a challenge.
DFS, I'm sure it was DFS, but they had literally 500, 600 things on every single wall in this 2-story showroom. You can have that in anything you want. I'm like, that is truly amazing. But you've then got to wait.
Yes.
But yeah, back to the flooring side, I think I've got a very biased view because we've had bricks and mortar, we've had vans with samples built in, and it seems to be a loop where people want to go to a shop to look at it, but then you've still got to visit the home to make the final decision or take the sample. Or most do, carpets maybe a little bit smooth, LVT and wood, people want to see it in the house. And then, so you've still got to get in a van and still got to price it up. So why not have, a fleet of vans that came out rather than all these huge costs of, commercial buildings and things like that. But then we still see people that work with us that are doing, really good numbers from a retail store as well. But it's people like, well, what would you do? And I'm like, would I have a van? Would I have a shop? I'm like, well, I don't quite know, because I've got clients that are doing both. And I've got clients, bricks and mortar, that aren't doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
We've got ones that are doing very well. And then we've got vans that are doing okay, and some that are doing. So it depends on who's in the van and who and what the sale, the process and systems involved. So
I think a lot of it comes down to trust as well, doesn't it? A trust from the consumer. If they see a bricks and mortar retail store, personally, and it's just personal preference, I would feel more trust into that brand if it's got a bricks and mortar store rather than a mobile showroom of vans. However, to your point, if it was a fleet of vans that works from one central hub of maybe a unit similar, not too dissimilar to this, where the customer can visit, then there's it doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be on the high street. It doesn't have to be on a big retail park. The benefit to a big retail park is it gets footfall.
yeah,
But I've always kind of looked at flooring in particular as flooring's a necessity purchase. You don't walk past a retail showroom on a retail park of flooring and go, oh, let's go and have a look in there at some new flooring. In the main, you're buying it because you need it. Usually it's, well, as we know, usually it's the last thing to consider, even when it should be the first thing to consider when you're doing your room. But often it is the piece that's left to last.
Yeah.
You buy your furniture, you buy your curtains, you buy your dining table or your bed. Oh yeah, now let's look at the flooring because we've took the furniture out and the one that we've got ruined.
And 2 or 3 people have let you down along the way, and they're ready to pounce on you and think like you get the hard time. But
you're absolutely right. So I think there's a nice blend. I think maybe there's not the perfect model out there yet that somebody might come up with at some point, but it'll continue to pivot. I think you've got AI, you've got digital, VR headsets these days. It's crazy the technology that's out there.
Well, that's what, when you look at the kitchen showrooms, when you buy a 20, 30 grand kitchen, you've always been able to get like a 3D render or for the last, 10 years. And now obviously flooring's slowly catching up to show you a room visualizer.
Yeah.
But obviously, how long is it going to be before you can go into a flooring showroom and just VR your way through the showroom? The technology's already there, but I don't think there's any showrooms with them. But you've got the visualizers, but not ones that go on your head. So it's,
and then to that point, how big does your showroom have to be? If you've got almost endless aisles in a VR headset, then you only need a very small showroom to feel the textures. And there's some suppliers these days will send samples within 48 hours. So I think it's always evolving. It's quite exciting to see what the right model or what the new model is going to look like. But I definitely think that change needs to be embraced, because if you don't change, then I think it can be quite a scary future.
That's it.
Because the customer's expectation is changing so much.
Yeah, that's was an interesting conversation with like a client that's got a relatively substantial flooring business, and he said before Christmas, he just said a couple of words, and he was like, if you don't move in 2026, 27, you're not gonna have a business, And it was quite I don't know, there was a lot of thought that went into it, and he was just like, and then just was off, it was gone. But I just thought, I kind of know what you mean. Like, he didn't need to explain himself of this, that, or the other. It was just quite a bold.
Yes.
If you're going to stand still, you're not going to have a business.
I think sometimes it's great it's important to stand still and look at the wider surroundings and the changes that are going on, but don't stand still too long, because it's the old cliche: if you're not moving forwards, you're moving backwards, and you will quickly get left behind. And as I say, and we keep referring to, but this tech, and there's so many businesses now that are just popping up and stealing big market share because the creators aren't necessarily flooring or furniture people, they're tech people, and they just know processes. And I was in a business meeting not too long ago, which was endorsed by quite a famous ex-footballer, and he was sat there with us, and it was a great conversation to be part of. And these guys were talking about taking over the distribution industry, and I was like, okay, let's listen and let's hear what that could look like. And the idea was amazing, and it was just using tech to connect all the different services that all the other platforms were already using, and just almost piggyback on top of their service, but charge the end user a fee. And I was running through it, and you try not to look too excited. I was running through it, I was thinking, this is a fabulous idea. And these guys weren't in distribution.
Uh-huh.
They had no idea. Well, to say they had no idea about distribution was isn't doing them a disservice. But they were just smart young lads that knew tech and knew AI and knew what they were doing and could join the dots. And I was like, this is quite frightening, so.
There's just quite a lot of the bigger e-commerce flooring businesses at the moment. I think they're all under 35, which makes me new feel a little. Yeah. But it's shown that the technology is there when you've got these historic flooring businesses that have done the same for 30 years, and now they're just starting to open their eyes, thinking, we're going to have to move. We're going to have to, why is this not working? Why is that not working? Where you've got clients that are 50, 60-year-old that are now looking for a younger generation to help out. So I don't know how much you operate in the flooring industry, but even when you're in the flooring industry, what would you think the biggest challenge of the flooring industry is at the moment?
I think at the moment, well, I don't think it's ever changed. I think attracting great fitting teams and retaining them, I felt was always the biggest challenge. And the clients that I do work with, and from past experience at SCS, having great fitting teams. If you don't have great fitting teams, you haven't really got a flooring business, because it's not going to last. If you've got fitting teams out there that are
Mediocre.
just chucking it down and no care and attention, that might not just be the quality of the work. That might be the quality of their customer service. The lack of care and attention. You're going to ruin your flooring brand very, very quickly. And actually at SCS, that happened. I would say 2021. Fitting rates increased almost overnight, and the bounce back from the buoyant business from lockdown return. So fitters could almost choose the retailer that they wanted to go and work with, and personally, I think quite rightly so. The fitters, I think, were underpaid for a long time. It's a skill for a great fitter that's done it for a long period of time, and they're almost like funny analogy, but they're almost a bit like football players. They can only do it for a certain length of time before they need to step away, or they need to start building a team around them. And move into more a managerial role, because as the knees will be shot, and it's a tough job, isn't it?
Oh, million percent.
Yeah, so it's a tough job, and I don't think that's appreciated enough. So, the toughest challenge was finding great fitting teams, and I always worked on the rule that a business has 3 customers. And the 3 customers for me, and this could be whether it be flooring relevant or not, but 3 customers for me were, you had your main customer that paid the bills, the customer that walked in or didn't walk in, chose to shop with you. They were very important. If without those, there is no business. You then have your internal customer, and your internal customer is your sales teams, your managerial teams, all the way from director down to warehouse operative. If you don't treat them well, they'll choose to go and shop or work somewhere else.
Yeah.
So really importantly, look after that second customer. But then your third customer is your flooring installer, or your kitchen fitter, or your curtain installer. That third party installer. Again, if you don't pay them well, if you don't look after them, if they don't feel part of the team, if they're not valued, they can choose to go and shop or work somewhere else. So I think it's very important to see them as part of the team, to integrate them in as much of the working process of the business that you can, so they feel part of the team. And then usually they can be pretty loyal. There's some that aren't, but it's like anything. You with any employee or subcontractor, you'll work with some that are great, you'll work with some that are not great, and goes down to the interview process. How do you vet them? What work do you look at first? But yeah, that was always the biggest challenge in the flooring industry for me.
No, I found that we did like a mastermind with some clients last Tuesday, and one of the guys was like, can't remember what he said. I think he was giving his fit a £4.50 a metre. He was charging them out with £5.50. And everyone's looking at him going, it's a bit cheap, that. It's like, oh, well, that's what the shop up the road does. I'm like, so you're basing your financial decisions on what the people, someone else is doing. So I'm like, pointing to someone else, so what do you get? He went, well, I get £7. Right? I said, are you any better than him? He was like, no. So why don't you give your man £5.50? And then, obviously, do your proper mathematics, but hypothetically, why don't you bring it up to £7? Your man's getting an extra quid, so he's going to choose to work for you. Then you're actually making double what you made before. It wasn't enough, in my opinion, but it was. But as long as he's making all the materials at the right rate, everyone's winning here. Never thought about that. I just wanted to keep myself. What did he use? Oh, I used a really crap phrase. I can't remember what it was.
Like competitive.
Yeah, like competitive or something. Yeah, something like that. And I'm like, yeah, but everyone's discussing around this table cash flow issues. To put it really bluntly, the cash has got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's only coming in. You're not making it from trees. So if it's not coming from your fitting, it's not coming from your materials. Where else you're expecting to solve a cash flow deficit? Oh, that's a really good point. And I'm like,
Come again. It just go back to that point. It becomes a race to the bottom, doesn't it? And everybody's got to get paid. Everybody's got to be happy, and that's why they go to work in the first place. And if you don't build up that relationship with your fitter, or your fitter has a gut feeling that you're holding back on them, or there's always those pub stories, isn't there? Of somebody saying, "Oh, well, I'm getting this down the road," and they will talk, but that's fine. I think it doesn't always have to be financially rewarding, although that is up there with the most important. If they feel that they're getting a fair rate of pay and they're looked after and they're treated well and they're compensated when jobs don't go ahead, and they pay contractors to come and work with them, and I see it all the time. Businesses, this customer's pulled their fitting from tomorrow. Well, I've got 2 lads in tomorrow and they're already paid. I can't let them down. Oh, just the rough with the smooth, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, it's not the rough with the smooth. That's somebody's business. You wouldn't tolerate it in your business. So why should they? And it's just about helping the flooring business maybe see it with a little bit more empathy of, this is a human being that is just running their own business. And if you look after them and treat them well, they will look after you, and if they don't, then that's time to look for somebody else. Because if it's all one way, you need to set the right standards. But it's got to be a partnership, and I definitely think it's a partnership, but it can't be a race to the bottom. It can't be all about price. I believe that you've got to demonstrate value in everything that you do. And we talk again about these new businesses that are popping up. You can have a business that's been trading for 50 years, a couple of family members, well known on the high street in the local area, but then a business can pop up almost overnight, but do social media really well.
Yeah.
And it's the social media brand that'll attract the new customer, not the legacy. They've been there 50 years. That 50-year-old business might attract a certain customer that's getting older and in 10 or 15 years might not be around to buy flooring anymore. But the business that's on social media, that's paying for sponsored ads, that's showing the sexy flooring going down and the before and afters and using social media strategies really well, is probably the one that's going to succeed long term.
No, I get that. And we have that, we've seen that with even the National Flooring Awards when we're going through all the nominees of a lot of the social media finalists were all sub 4-year-old businesses.
Yes.
So it's interesting you say that. Yes, there's no legacy businesses that have just been world class all the way through. There was on retail stores and things like that, but not on the technology side. So it's
I'm curious, did they call themselves flooring installers, or did they call themselves influencers?
It's funny as hell. So the guys that won did a spoof video the other day of a day in the life of an influencer.
Yeah.
But obviously, yeah, they do some really great work. It's but they did like a 2-minute video of like literally. Sorry, I don't fit floor anymore. I'm an influencer. Oh what? Yeah, I'm an influencer. and just puts the phone down, and then they were playing golf, and they were doing all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. But it was a really clever spoof of what people presumed a day in the life of, but the amount of work that goes into it, that's I think what people think it's just one or two posts, and it's like, no, this is like
It's
every day in, day out.
You almost need a team around them. Some of them, I'm sure, probably do have a social media team or contact. It is so difficult.
We interviewed the ball builders,
Okay.
and
Funny guy,
and he has a full-time videographer like attached to his left hip all the time. Like, so I think apart from when they go on the radio, but as soon as they come out the radio, they've got a videographer with them all the time. And it's like you see them and you like in your day-to-day scrolling of whatever, and they produce great content and they get great sponsorship deals and all that type of stuff. But yeah, there's like, when I got into it, made a great podcast, but it was like of how much work is needed to get to that level.
Yeah.
But then once you get to that level, you've got like so many, like another 20 steps to just get to the next level. But you're still no one.
Yeah.
So the minute you think you're someone, you're no one.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. I think when they first kicked off, they were like, we're the top G's. And it's the biggest mistake we've ever made, because we jumped up and then we got to know more, and we're like, we're not even ticking on the sides.
Yes.
So it's
incredible stuff. I mean, to see like their journey, and there's a couple of them now, isn't there, out there? But I think what they've also done is they've brought a bit of fun to the industry. They've brought a bit of fun to fit and flooring. As an example. Yeah, it's a really tough thing to do, but they make it quirky. Then it's fun to watch and enjoyable to watch. So particularly for us flooring geeks,
it's got to be real and like that. If it's put on a show, it's got a certain entertainment factor. But the ones that I think really work are just when you meet them in person. It's exactly the same, on off camera. It's just the same people.
I think with some retailers, I think the non-polished content is better. I think when you can see that the behind the scenes, for example, or the work that goes in, and the social media or the marketing team share that, it gets a lot of engagement, and a lot of retailers get great engagement as well from the family story, from talking about what the business's history and heritage is, rather than just about what new products coming up. There's a time and a place for marketing a product. Selling. We've got to sell things, right? But it's that the customers want to buy into a brand and want to believe. What's that brand about? What's its values? What do the people look like? What do they get up to on a day-to-day basis?
That's it. And they feel more comfortable when they come into the store. They're like, oh, you're that guy with it. Yeah, that's the part of the video. So it's what AI tools, business tools, what are you advising your clients, maybe in the flooring industry or even out, that's transferable? What golden nuggets could you give the podcast of what's good in 2026?
Ooh, good question. Well, look, the early one would be ChatGPT. It's very simple to use. There's two main AI platforms out there at the minute that I would use regularly, and that would be ChatGPT and Grok. So Grok, great for images, great for if you haven't got a budget for marketing, a big marketing spend budget, but if you want to change the color of a piece of flooring or a dining table or a sofa, you could do that really quite cleanly and easily with Grok.
Does it do better than ChatGPT?
Yeah, I find it does. I find if you give the description, if it's all with any AI tool, it's all about the description. If you're very loose in your description, the end result will be very, very loose.
Yeah.
Whereas, Grok, I find is the better one of the two. And ChatGPT, there's so many fun things that you can do with ChatGPT. You can create your own GPT. So, for example, I've just created a reviewing. Best way to describe it, it's almost like a pre-review for sales professionals. So it will ask you preloaded questions about the salesperson's performance. The client can download it, go on the link, click the link, and it'll walk you through the process. So what were their sales for the quarter? How would you rate them in terms of their behavior? How did they contribute? And it'll ask you a list of questions, and then it will give you a preloaded script almost that you can work from. Not you read it out directly to the individual, but it'll give you a preloaded review schedule of things that you will want to talk to them about. You can import the data for the wider sales team. And the reason that I created that was I see, and many clients that I work with have never done reviews before. They see performance management as something that's quite alien. And it doesn't have to be, sitting somebody down and saying, oh, how terrible they were last month, or, or even high fives and, or hugs. But you've got to have a conversation with somebody and let them know how well or not so well that they're performing. You've got to be honest with them. You've got to give them that advice. So using just something like ChatGPT for somebody that hasn't had performance coaching or hasn't had training in delivering a performance review just helps give a little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
One frustration for me with AI is you see more and more now AI being used to write reports, to
Without even being checked as well.
yeah. You can spot AI language. I use AI a lot. I use AI a lot. What I will never use AI for is to write an email for me. I'll never use AI to put together a report for a client. What I might do is I might input it into AI and ask it to check the flow, or ask it, how does it feel? What's the delivery look like? And it might then give me some suggestions. But, if I was putting together a monthly report, I wouldn't just put the figures into AI and say, create me a monthly report. However, I do see more and more of that now. And for some, it speeds up the process, I think, and it's okay in a way. But I think with reports, you're looking for the human behavior. You're looking for the feeling, and you don't get that with AI. You don't get any feeling at all. It's very generic. It's cold almost. It's very matter of fact. It's very analytical. So, if you're asking a training department to put together some stats on how many training sessions have they pulled together for the quarter, then that might be okay, because you're not looking for human interaction, really. You're just looking for stats. Whereas if you're asking a marketing team on, what were the behavioral feedbacks from their marketing campaign over the last 3 months, and you get an AI written generated report, you almost find that the person that's put those data, the people that have inputted that data, don't really benefit from it either, because when you're typing out a report or you put in the facts and the figures into a report, almost as you're writing it, you're learning more from the information. You're going down a rabbit hole. So whereas AI is great for some things, I would say steer away from using it to write reports. Use it for training programs. Training is great with AI. And again, these smaller independent retailers that don't have training departments and are struggling on a Monday morning to come up with a sales meeting that's fun, and energetic, throw it into AI. You talk to it in the car on the way into work, and, give me an idea for a motivational Monday morning meeting that's going to get my sales staff smiling, having a little bit of fun, but ready to be engaged for the day. It's great for that kind of thing. And that's where I would say use those platforms, but don't use them for the important stuff, because
Not the finished
article.
No, yeah.
Definitely not. You see, sadly, I see businesses approach other businesses that I consult for, and you can tell that the presentation's just all AI driven. Sometimes you've paid for that work. And it's like, you've paid for a piece of work that actually is just very generic, very AI driven, uses lots of big words, tries to sound really clever and smart.
And they've used the phrase, the truth is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then there's no real content there. It's just words. You can read it a mile off.
I've found I write it because I'm massively dyslexic, and so for a tool for me it's world class. But I'll write out what I want to do on a scrap of paper, So I've kind of understood what I want to do. Then I'll dictate it from the piece of paper into AI and ask it to know everything that I've done before in my own tone, etc. Put this into that. And then I still only get it about 70%. Then I'll add something else in, and then add something else in, and then ask it to just put it into, right, I'm going to copy and paste this into PowerPoint now, and then tweak it again, and I then get it somewhere close. So
Yes.
it's like, as you said, keep probing at it,
Yeah.
and it's just, it changes everything. And I think the one thing I'm guilty of, but it does help me, where I'll have to reply to an email in a sensible sort of format, and I'll sometimes struggle to write. I won't say not a professional email, that's not fair. It would take me maybe 10 minutes to write a professional email.
Yeah.
I'll throw it into ChatGPT, then respond by voice. So write me an email, response to this. This is what I want to say. I struggle with this, and then it normally gets about 85%. But that would take
some
me.
of your human.
Yeah.
It's you, isn't it? It's not just AI. Which
No, yeah, you can tell it's like, and that's obviously the paid version. It saves what I've said before, so you say it like this and all that type of stuff.
if you've got a business and you can't afford a £20 a month subscription to ChatGPT Premium, and
Just something, but I mean,
Yeah.
I reckon it saves me that. I don't know. Well, if it was on an hourly rate, I don't know. Probably saves me like 20 times out a day, because it literally, some of the things I would have to write could take me like a 4-hour period, and I can get it done in 40 minutes.
Yeah, I like the fact that you can dictate, or you can talk to it. So I do a lot of miles. I'm out on the road a lot, and likewise, I'll ask it to save the data, so it understands me. It knows my tonality. But where it's really helpful for very small businesses is if they can't afford the likes of a Salesforce program or some software that can pull together their data. You can, at the end of every week, just simply input the data for that organization, and it will store it and give you charts. There's other AI, I think it's lovable.ai, that can create dashboards for you, and you just keep inputting the data, where, a small, Bill's flooring store can't afford that Salesforce access, but they can very quickly build themselves some cheap and simple sales dashboards that are pretty accurate and give a good visualization of how their business is operating. So I would say, just my recommendation would just be try and learn it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to get, if anything, bigger and stronger and scarier, I think. Have some fun with it. Use it. I love using it for things like images. If I'm going to do a training session and I want to do a funny image to really land the point, you can do that in words. But if you can land a really funny image, often me taking the mickey out myself, or something silly, people remember it and people relate to it. I see LinkedIn. Oh, there's so many posts now that are just written on LinkedIn that are just AI.
Completely.
It's a shame, because you lose that contact, that the purpose of LinkedIn, the connections. You can't connect with an AI conversation. You can just see how it's written. You've got the bullet point format, and
it's more of a statement than a
And I'd rather see somebody that wrote 2 or 3 lines and that's it. Of me, I know that you know the people that you're connecting with. You think, that's not how you speak. That's not your language. What? It's not authentic. And I think that is one thing AI is taking away, that authenticity of people. So loads of great things with AI. I think small businesses in particular can't afford those big platforms, big pieces of software. Use AI, but don't let it replace the human part of the journey.
I was smiling when you were saying something there. Our guy on the road, Hugo, is the least corporate, least computer literate guy. So he's done 15 years as a carpet fitter, then he was a retailer, then he's come to work for us. And so he was always in his fitting trousers, always with silicone on his top. That was Hugo. And now he sends me like a weekly report, but from the car via ChatGPT with no editing.
Right, okay.
But it's just the most funny thing, because it literally looks like this polished report of like, I visited this person, I've discussed this, and operationally we can make more profit doing this. And you look at it going, that's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
But it's fucking not you.
Yeah, it's not you.
It's just so not you.
And that's okay.
But it's
Yeah.
you know, because for him to do it again, it would probably take him half a day on a Saturday. His head would fallen off.
Yeah.
And all I want to know is the facts. I don't care actually how ChatGPT's put it into. Well, actually, I do just want the ChatGPT version because it's in sections. He's looked at all the outcomes, looked at all the things that have gone right and wrong, and it's in a report.
Yes.
So all I've done is ask for a report, and I know quite clearly it's a dictated ChatGPT one.
Yeah.
But it's not going to a client. It's not going to anyone else. It's internal. But it's just, yeah, when it comes in on a Friday, it's like, this is hilarious. This because it's this is like, it's just not you. This, but it works. But it, you know, he gets his notebook out and just reads through where he's been. And
Yeah.
Bob's younger.
See, I think that's what it's about, the expectation, isn't it? I think that's brilliant. And the great thing about AI, you know, it's not really limited to the number of ideas or creative input that, you know, you or I, we will hit a level. If you write some creative content on a piece of paper, you might get through 1, 2, 3, 4, you might get to 10 pieces of paper if you're lucky. This will just go on forever. And it's great when you think, I'll often use it if I'm struggling with an idea, or I've got something in the back of my brain and I'm in the car and I'm thinking, I want to run this idea through, and I'll bounce ideas off, but I'll ask it to challenge me. I'll ask it to try and put a different spin on it. And that's where I'll use it for the creative thinking. And that's where I think, you know, the value is, you know, is incredible. I will use it to critique some of my work, but I'll try my very best not to become lazy. You know, it's like the autocorrect when that came in. Now, my spelling used to be fantastic, but because autocorrect's there, over time you get a bit dumber and dumber and dumber, don't you? But yeah, I use it for those purposes. But the small businesses, definitely, there's training courses that you can do on AI that are relatively cheap, just to learn the basics. I've never done one myself because I'm pretty good at self-learning, but for those that struggle with technology, and I think you jump on a Coursify course for 50 quid, you know, just to learn the basics of each different AI platform and what they offer your business. I think it's a good investment.
100%. It's funny you say that. My spelling is absolutely horrific, but I love the way ChatGPT recognises what I'm trying to say, even though the words, if I went back to it 2 weeks later, I can't tell what I've written because I've like typed away. But it's like, but it knows of like, you've just literally, I know what I was saying, but I don't even like recorrect my spelling.
No, it's so clever. It is clever. It's frighteningly clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. 3 people you would like to go for a pint with tonight, dead or alive, and why?
3 people I would like to go for a pint with tonight, dead or alive. I would say sentimental, but would be my dad. I lost my dad when I was 24 years old, so it'd be great to go for a pint with him. I didn't really get chance to do much of that when I was younger, so he would be on the list. David Goggins, I'm not sure he'd have a pint,
No.
but David Goggins, absolute legend. Love everything he's about. Just challenges himself. I think he'd be a great conversationalist, and I think, you know, he wouldn't take any BS, and he'd probably challenge a lot of people in that same pub. So that'd be really interesting. And again, I don't think he'd have a pint, but I'd love to spend an evening. No, I'm going to change it. I'm sorry. I was going to go with Cristiano Ronaldo, but I'm actually going to change it. I'd love to have a pint with Sir Alex Ferguson, and just the brain. I'd just love to tap into his brain and his leadership and how he got the best out of his team. And I'm a Man United fan for my sins. How he got the best out of his team, but also how he was able to always rebuild. So every 2 or 3 years he had to rebuild and do, and that in itself is a challenge. So yeah, 3 people. I think my dad, Goggins, and Fergie. That'd be some table.
What a table that is.
Yeah. What about yours? I'm curious to see, what would your three be?
I'm with you. My dad died when I was 3. So I'll stick with that. Tony Robbins. I think I'll have him. I'm going to say anyway. The next person that came to my mind was Clarkson.
Oh, okay.
Just began because got my Clarkson DVDs as I was a child.
Jesus.
Not a business side. If it was a business table, I'll have Robbins and who else have I have on a business side? Thinking of Lord Sugar would be a bit of a hard table, really. So it would be Mr. Branson, probably. Maybe, yeah. If there was a business table, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. But I think Robbins would be a really good one. Yeah.
This book, I've read it, Awaken the Giant Within. Incredible book. Like, brilliant. It took me years to read it, though. I kept picking it up and putting it down, and then I did a challenge called 75 Hard, just over 12 months ago, and that was my time. Every day I had to read 10 pages of a book, and I read it. And a brilliant book. You know.
What is your favorite? Have you got a favorite book or best business book? Or
my favorite book would be probably 2. I'd have to go to it. It's quite an old school book now, but it is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and I only refer back to it because I read it every 2 or 3 years, because it kind of grounds me a little bit. It brings me back to what I used to do when I was it brings me back to the basic lessons of what I used to do when I was a younger manager, and the reason I say that is because when you're first become a manager and you think you know absolutely everything. I remember going on holiday with my wife. We went to Rhodes, and I first read that book. I came back, it absolutely changed my life. It changed the way that I interacted with people. It changed the way that I coached and managed people. But I think over time you grow some bad habits, so I do use that probably every 2 or 3 years just to bring me back, become a bit more grounded. And some of the practices are a bit out of date now, but you can kind of add your own spin to it. So yeah, I love that book. And Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Brilliant book. And I actually bought that for my 19-year-old son when I think he's about 14 or 15 years old.
Brought a kids one out now as well.
Have they really?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it is literally just a small book. I think it's from like 12. Is it 10 plus 12 plus? But yeah, it's a little version of it as well. Definitely not as detailed as the main book, but it's.
I know the Carnegie book had a small the 10 Golden Rules. So that was one I used to keep in my laptop bag, and it was pretty much the book condensed into the 10 Golden Rules, which is great. I love reading business books, and actually I've just started to read fiction as well, which I've never really been a big fiction reader, but I'm enjoying that.
So you're a reader rather than listener, so not audible books, no?
I love a podcast. I love an audible book. I think you don't digest the information, particularly a business book. I don't digest the information as well when I'm reading the book, so I like to listen to it.
Yeah.
Whereas fiction, I wouldn't like to listen to a fiction in the car, so I use my car as an office. So literally, I'm either on the phone or I'm listening to some form of engaging or beneficial content, whether it be a podcast or an audible book. But you select those 3 people. I could have 10. Stephen Bartlett, Chris Williamson. There's loads of people that I'd love to have a conversation with. I've just booked tickets for Chris Williamson actually in Manchester. So that he does a really good podcast. Ant Middleton, his books are absolutely brilliant. And there's loads of. I love reading a good.
I've struggled with. I've got an Audible membership, and I've really struggled to get into. I used to listen to them all the time, and then I've just kind of, not podcasts. I find an hour. I really enjoy one.
Yeah.
Trying to get an hour into a book. I don't know why. I don't know why. I've literally got about 6 waiting to go.
I've got 7 free credits in my order, but I just can't spend them because I know exactly what you're saying. I think in the car, particularly if you're more than a couple of chapters, you start to drift away. I think sometimes you need that little bit of time to digest what you've just learned. You know, listen to a chapter, turn it off, you know, digest it. And that's where I do think reading a book, 'cause I like to, you know, make a note in the book. And if you saw my books, there's scribbles and, you know, particularly if I've read them more than once.
That's what I used to do. I used to take a book on holiday with a highlighter.
Yes.
And then it seems to, I think more because I spent more time in the car. So, but I used to get a book highlighter. And then
The book's melted by the time you finish. So, you know, the binders are coming out. Yeah. What starts as a perfect book doesn't look perfect at the end of it.
What is the best and worst bit of advice you've ever received, and you can remember who it was from?
Ooh, the best and worst bit of advice. I can't remember who said it, but the worst bit of advice I was given was stay in your lane. I've heard it used, and I hear it used quite a lot. And actually, I'm guilty sometimes of saying it in certain situations. But stay in your lane. I think it's pretty much telling somebody don't have a thirst for knowledge. Don't ask questions. Just do what you are paid to do, or do what you are meant to do. And I think that's a really narrow way of managing people. And you know, you want people to have that thirst for knowledge and that engaging within other departments. And so I think that's probably the worst bit of advice that I hear given regularly. Best bit of advice I've ever been given. I think I'm trying to think of the words that he used, but it was pretty much it was by a guy called Billy Farrell, who I did a bit of training with up in Scotland. And I think it was a Robbins quote. And it was something along the lines of, no matter the past, you have a spotless future. And it was kind of what he was trying to say there was, it doesn't matter what's happened to you before, or what's happened to you in the past, or what you've done, or what mistakes you've made. Your future is still unwritten, and you kind of get that opportunity to rewrite it. And I've always loved that. And I was up in Scotland when he first said that. And it's so true, because many people can let the past define them. So whenever I'm doing a bit of one-to-one coaching, you can see when people are clinging on to something from the past, and they're almost letting it define their personality or define their character. So yeah, I love that. You know, you no matter your past, you've got a spotless future.
That's I noticed you were with a mutual friend of ours, Paul Mort, last week.
Yes.
So Paul's coached me, coached Sarah, and really interesting thing, because he's got a certain way of coaching people, you know, quick ink.
Yeah.
But he's like, right, just so we're clear, we're not going to look at the past, because I can't change that.
Yes.
But I can change the future.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's like, that's like the blunt Geordie version, but it is literally like, well, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
But what we can do is from now that way, and let's go there. Like, and I just thought that was an amazing thing. And I think again, another one of Paul's was you're in complete control of how you feel.
Yes.
And when I first heard that, I was like, that's not true. And then as you kind of do more coaching and more self-development, you're like, actually, and that's what I was saying before the podcast about the you know, sort of running exercise, and you are in control of how you feel. But then when someone takes the control away, you're like, well, I still am in control.
Yes.
But it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
So
why am I giving them control?
Yeah. So
Paul's a great guy. Like, great. I've followed Paul for, God, probably 2019. I did one of his programs. I don't know if you know the Transformation, 28 Days Transformation.
Yeah.
And that was back in 2021, maybe. But I was employed at the time, and I didn't see any benefit to going any further with his programs, although I've listened to him for years and followed his content. And I joined his program back end of last year. And more so because when you, being a consultant, I work on my own a lot. Although I've got clients, you can't really have a conversation with clients about, you know, how do you do this? Or I've tried this a couple of times. This isn't really working. So I wanted to surround myself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I, as I said, followed Paul for a while, and I jumped on his course, and I've not looked back. I thoroughly enjoy it. Thoroughly enjoy the people that the friends that I've met through his program. I'm in a great accountability group that we message each other every morning, and that wasn't put together by Paul. It was just people that are already in an accountability group, and I think if you are a reflection of those people that you spend the most time with. And I think in my role, I wasn't really spending time with anybody other than my clients.
Yeah.
So it's great now just to take a day out a month to go and work on me and my business. And it's been great. And he's a great guy. It's not for everybody.
No. No, and
He
that's
tells you straight, doesn't he? Yeah.
I think it was really interesting. I sat, well, not in here. Well, no, I wasn't here. I sat in here beginning of September with the guys from Headlam, and we were like thinking of ideas of what can we do? Can we do this? Can we do that? And obviously, I came up with the idea of the National Flooring Awards. I've had this in my back pocket for 3 years, and they were like, "Well, we'll support you if you want to run it." And so I thought, well, we tried locally, and we couldn't find anywhere that didn't have enough rooms. So I thought, well, let's go to the next biggest city. Let's go to Newcastle, selfishly. And I thought, well, I know the Crown Plaza. So I went up there, all agreed, and I just booked the Crown Plaza. And then I went back a month later with Sean and some other people, and just went back to look at the room that we'd booked. And then I came back and it clicked. So the first time I met Paul it must have been 2017 maybe, and he ran a day for, I think, 30, 40 lads in the Crown Plaza.
Yeah.
And I was like, fucking cup was shaking. I was absolutely petrified, like that I was going to this thing where men would sit in a room, and this mad man was like saying, "You need to be there for 7:15. I'm not going to let you in. You go at the doors. You go and fuck yourself." And then it just clicked. I'm like, how have we gone from? I mean, it obviously 16 to 10 years. But we've gone from turning up petrified, like I'm talking like nearly not turning up at all, to then figuring out where am I going to put my own stage. And I'm like, how was this? How was this?
Yeah. How you've grown in such 8 or 9 years time is amazing.
I just thought that was. I actually put it in my keynote about like 10 years ago. I was upstairs, shitting myself.
Yes.
And that's what transformed that sort of controllable. Then you wouldn't, like, as soon as Paul's like, "What do you think?" I'm like hiding from the questions, and like now I'm asking but then it was also interesting looking my team and other people that we had speaking, watching how people were prepared. Obviously, I went first. That was one of the things that learned off Paul: go first, it's easier. So I went first at my own event. So it was got it out of the way, and I was like, well, there's all the anxiety gone.
Yeah.
But then watching the keynotes come through, and then bloody swaying, like thinking, like when they got up there, you would never know.
Yeah.
But obviously, I was at the back with the guys, and it was really interesting to watch. Oh, this is normal. This is normal to before you go on a stage. And it was only 100 people, so it was
100 people, right?
Yeah.
If you're out of your comfort zone and you're not used to doing it, it's still 100 people is a lot of people, to talk to. But I think if you were talking to us 100 people about flooring and you were given a flooring training, you probably wouldn't have even blinked, because it's what it's your experience. But I think when you're taking yourself out your comfort zone, you're doing something different. So if you're presenting, and I don't know what your keynote was about, but you do, it can make you, if you're not nervous, you don't care. It's usually that it's not important to you. So it's great to feel those nerves. And I think sometimes you've got to take yourself out your comfort zone. Paul talks about it, living comfortably. It's not the right thing to do. One thing I've done since October, I've always struggled doing fun things. I've always felt guilty. I work hard, really put in the time. I'm away from home a lot. I've got 4 children, but I've never really taken, or my wife might tell you differently, but I don't really take much time to do fun stuff. So yeah, one thing I have started to do is just plan some fun stuff in. So this weekend I was fortunate enough, I went driving some sports cars around a track in Teesside that my wife bought me for a birthday present, but she knew that it was on my bucket list of things I wanted to do this year. I went to Marbella at the back end of last year with Paul and his group. You know, we were swimming in the ocean at 6:45 in the morning, and I didn't drink all weekend. It wasn't a boozy trip. It was, you know, 3 or 4 days just working on ourselves, but we had a great time. So it's helped me write some fun things that I want to do in the next 12 months and not feel guilty about them.
No, that's one of Paul's F5s is the fun part.
It absolutely is. And I've always practiced something very similar before meeting Paul. So I did what's called and I teach what's called Core 4. So it's body, being, balance, and business. So it's very, very similar. And now meeting Paul learned the same thing. So it's by a guy called Jarrett J. White from American guy, crazy guy, apparently Paul said. And I watched his content years and years and years ago. And Paul took that idea and put a different spin on it with the fun. Whereas I've always practiced the body, being, balance, and business and used the being as the fun piece. So maybe that's why I've never really been able to do those fun things. So Paul's practice is similar. So it's not too out of the comfort zone, but adding that fun element in and making sure that you've got those fun goals and fun things planned out. It does it.
It makes a huge difference. I've seen clients of ours that we've not introduced a similar thing, but it's just, again, it's like they've like, what have you done in the last 2 years for yourself? Like, well, I haven't.
Yeah.
Or at all? No. And then the old expression, I don't have time. And it's like, we're not going to have this conversation about time. Everyone's got the same time.
Yeah.
But it's what you're prioritizing. And the results we've seen from that's been, but yeah, I think that was the start of Cockerill Co. Not, what was it? Yeah. Building that confidence to do it for help other people. Because I think prior to that, and I think there's a comment you said before about leading a team. My biggest downfall we made a team of 21 at one point, and I wouldn't have staff meetings. I wouldn't speak to the group.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
You only know what you know, don't you?
Yeah. And it's like, that was the biggest thing that I could have learned quicker, is if I'd got over that. Was it public speaking for you? Probably.
Yeah.
Communication. It's probably learned communication a lot better rather than, well, this is the way we're doing it. If you don't like it, fuck off.
Yeah.
And that got me so far, but as soon as I started listening, it changed the game. So it's
I think that for me, the quick wins for any business, that I'll go into, are they having regular team meetings? And when I'm saying regular, I'm talking daily almost. And that they only have to be, a coffee and a catch up, just setting the tone for the day, bringing the energy, maybe a bit of information, bit of training every now and again, but mixing it up so the team don't really know what they're walking into, because there's nothing worse than walking into a sales meeting. You just know it's going to be the same boring bits of information. We're going to talk about figures and this, and it's almost keep them on the toes. And I like to surprise people. I've had people pitching all sorts of weird and wonderful ideas and taking them out of the comfort zone. So I think that's really important. That creates leadership, and that they start to feel part of the organization if they're involved in it every day. And don't get me wrong, for some, they won't enjoy it. It'll take time, and I've experienced something recently. They sit there like this for the first 5 or 6 meetings, and then the shoulders start to go back, and then they start a little bit more fun. And it's like anything. If you just continuously do it, they'll start to they'll start to get
it becomes normal.
It does. It becomes normal, so they'll enjoy that. So that for me is morning meetings, morning briefs. Get them energized, and start sharing numbers, start talking numbers, whether that be individual or the business numbers. And again, it gets the team all bought in and all facing in the same direction. So I think those two things are really important. If the business isn't doing that on a regular basis, that's one of the first things that I'll try and implement, and just very simple, but it's effective.
Yeah. I've seen so many flooring businesses, 20, 30-year-olds, that like, was last time well, we went out with Christmas. What? To get pissed? Yeah. And before that, last Christmas.
Yeah.
It's like,
Exactly.
when have you got all your fitters together? It's like, no, we haven't. You said you've just been to drive some cars around Teesside. Dream 3-car garage.
Do you know, I'm not a big car guy, if I'm honest. I wanted to drive performance cars because I've never done it. My 3-car garage though would be a Range Rover. because I've always wanted one, a brand new one. You know, I'll probably never buy one because I'm too tight, and I know that they're not that reliable apparently.
No.
So but I've always wanted a Range Rover, Porsche 911.
Yeah.
Always wanted a Porsche 911, particularly the. Do you remember the film Bad Boys?
Yeah.
Do you remember the black one they had in Bad Boys
Yeah.
at the beginning? And then we've been watching a program recently called Yellowstone. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
One of those big trucks, you know, big American, wide wheel. Just my kids, every time it's on TV now, that, oh, Dad, are you gonna buy one of them? I'm like, maybe one day. So yeah, that'll be my 3-car garage. Do you know what I'd love to add an addition and have a Harley Davidson in there. I haven't got a motorbike license, but I've always said I would love to pass my motorbike license and buy a Harley, just because I think they're so cool. I'd be like proper middle-aged dad with my leathers on. My stepdad is a biker, so I've been around bikes, you know, since growing up. I've always wanted that Harley Davidson, big low rider, wide wheel on the back.
Yeah, my stepdad's big on bikes, and I think since I went on the back of it when I was like 16, I was like, never again. I want a windscreen. I don't want 4 wheels that are attached to the tarmac. I don't like. It didn't even go that fast there. I just didn't.
Didn't injure. Didn't feel safe.
But
they took me out in an aerial Atom on Saturday. That was frightening. I like to drive. I'm a pretty fast driver. I'm safe, but if I'm on a track and I'd like go-karting. Me and my son go-karting regularly. And have you ever driven the electric go-karts?
Not the fast ones.
Instant power. They're frightening. Like, they are instant power. This was like one of those, but on steroids. It was. I don't get nervous in a car, and I knew that I was with a professional, so you know that's kind of makes you feel a little bit safer. But this was frighteningly fast. I mean, we were overtaking the Lamborghinis. It was just incredibly fast.
Just a roll cage with the engine strapped to the back.
It's like a big go-kart, you know, it's like a go-kart on steroids, but 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. And I don't know how fast. I couldn't look. I was pinned back in my seat. Like, I don't know. Oh, it was fun, but frightening. Yeah, it was really good.
Love that. And what's next for Ben Wain?
Oh, what is next for Ben Wain? Well, obviously I'm going to continue with the coaching and consultancy work, because it's my passion now. I enjoy it. I love watching the businesses that I work with grow. I've got my eye on buying a business. That's the next big thing. So I have a property business as well. I've got a really great business partner. He does a lot of the property work for us. He sends me the ideas. I'll vet them, and then he gets on with it. So it's a really good relationship. But we're both talking about M&A, so mergers, acquisitions, maybe looking at buying a business, using our pension to do so. A few opportunities in the pipeline there. Me and my wife are starting to think, do we want to live in the UK anymore? You know, we're starting to look at other options and possibilities. She'd love to move to France. This is a new thing, so it's literally weeks in the conversation. But the more she talks about it, the more excited I get. And you know, the weather's not the best in the UK, and you know, I could probably consult from abroad, and you know, particularly if I buy a business. So certainly the next 3 years we'll be UK based, building up a property portfolio. Maybe building up a few more clients in my consultant business. I'm just having some fun, you know. We're at a time in our lives now where, you know, we just want to enjoy it and really having some fun. So lots of holidays, you know, time with the kiddies. As I say, my son's 19. My daughter's doing her GCSEs this year. She's 15. So once that's out of the way, she'll be able to have a bit more fun and relax.
Same as mine's GCSEs. But
stressful year.
It's funny you say that with them. So before this podcast, I had a meeting with our financial advisor, and Sarah had kind of dealt with it. And obviously, once you put a few numbers on, like, well, if you put like 500 quid away, this is what you'll end up with, and all this. And I'm like, right, that kind of makes sense. But it's such a difficult question. Just like 53, what do you want to be doing? And I'm like, I want to worry about like today, tomorrow, next week. That, like, obviously we have a 90-day and we have a 6-month plan. But when it gets like on a personal level, it's a bit like what you said. I want to go on a nice holidays. I want to enjoy time with the kids and stuff like that, but there's not like a proper, when you look at the numbers, like, well, that's a proper tactical plan, but it's like, well, yeah, we need to get child through GCSEs, and there's another younger one a bit further down, and it's just, I found it really interesting. We're only for an hour's meeting to try and think, well, how do you want it to look? And I'm like, well, I'd rather create it as we go, not like I don't want to tell you now.
It's nice having an idea, isn't it? But I think if you look too far in the future, you don't focus on the here and now. And I think what I do like to do is have a bit of a plan. But anything outside of 3 years, the world can change. Things happen. People change. I think your goals change and you mature. So I don't want to work a day after I'm 55. So I'm 41 now. So the plan for me will be, of whatever financial position we're in, 55 for me is me done. And that's because, I've been around too many people that, have sadly passed away, not too long after that. And I don't want to work hard for 30 or 40 years and not get to enjoy it. So that for me is, I want to run as fast as I can, I guess, for the next 14 years. And then be able to just go, that's me done. Now, we'll still have property, we'll still have income, and that's potentially why buying businesses is what I want to do next. But yeah, for me, the goal is to be somewhere warm, to relax, to have my family around me, and just have a bit of fun and enjoy it, and hopefully to have helped some people in between, and it's nice to look back and think, will anybody ever say, oh, what a great guy, he really helped us and made a massive change to our business, or we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the help and the work that we did with him, or, that'll make me feel very proud, if I can have that impact.
And I think that's, when people say, oh, when do you think you'd want to retire? And it's like, well, if you could do bits of what you're already doing, like, is that retirement? I don't, it's like the bit of, what do you think? Is that like, well, I could do this, like, I enjoy this. This is great. It's not, it's not lugging carpets up a stairs, to be honest. But it's,
well, they say it's a cliche, isn't it? But if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. I think I want to be in that position when I'm 55 to say, well, actually, I'm ready just to not do anything. And I might well still, my wife says to me all the time, you won't. I get stressed when I'm not doing anything. I don't know about you, when you're not full on and you're not thick and fast, it's quite stressful. I like being busy. I go on holiday and I still check my emails, and I log on to the iPad just to have a look what's going on, because that relaxes me. If I don't know what's going on, that actually stresses me out. So maybe when I hit 55, I might be, I don't know, would it be still sit on a couple of boards, and I don't know. For me, I don't want to have to work. That'll be the position that I want to be in, and I can just take my foot off the gas and enjoy it and just do some crazy stuff.
I think that's a critical thing, take your foot off the gas, but then I think most entrepreneurs will still want to keep the foot somewhere, like, but maybe not at the same pace. I think
I'll trade the stock market. I'll have some fun trading stocks and shares, and find other ways of keeping myself busy, and watch a bit more sport, and maybe play golf. Play paddle, or do some fun stuff like that. But that is the goal and the vision for me. Whether like we say, maybe that will not make me happy at the time, and I'll want to do something, but I don't know. I think I'll enjoy the challenge.
Worry about it then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ben, where can people find you? Either on social media, websites, where can they find you?
Yeah, cool. So LinkedIn, Ben Wain on LinkedIn, you should find me pretty easily, and Instagram. So I use a lot of Instagram for my business stuff. Ben_Wain.
Brilliant. It's WAIN.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd like to explain that a few times in my life. Yeah, WAIN.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on the UK Flying Podcast.
Tom, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.